everyone, this is Lynn Wilson with Lynn Wilson Originals here today in Mills River, North Carolina, and I've decided I'm going to try to strip this top of this buffet. Sometimes when I'm painting furniture, I think it's pretty to have a wood top, particularly if I can stain it dark and paint it light, then it's a nice contrast. So I'm going to go over first the materials that I use. Most importantly, this is a respirator mask, and I won't be putting it on because it's kind of difficult to talk. But there are a lot of fumes associated with stripping furniture, and this will protect your lungs. I also always wear gloves. And make sure when you're getting your gloves that they are chemical resistant. Some nitrile gloves aren't chemical resistant, and it will burn right through to your hand. The product that I like to use for stripping furniture is this Rust-Oleum aircraft remover. And I don't know if they still have this on the market. The FDA pulled it, and I know that I couldn't order it off of Amazon anymore, but I still found it in auto parts stores. It works very quickly, and there are alternatives that are more eco-friendly. Citrus Strip is one of them that I tried, and it takes longer to work, and I was trying to strip paint, and it didn't work. It may work better on just shellacked for finishes. When I'm actually doing the stripping, I use just an old brush, definitely not a brush that you're going to paint with. This is a plastic scraper that came with my Bondo, and sometimes I use this to try to scrape the remover off. And then steel wool. This is the steel wool that I use. Any kind of quadruple zero steel wool will work. It just helps you get some of the stripper off. And once you finish doing that, I always try to finish up with this after wash. It takes the residue away. Now, one of the reasons this looks like an attractive project to try to strip, don't know if you can see here, but the wood is in fairly good condition. I do have one spot here that is a dark circle, and you always run the risk when you're stripping that dark stain runs all the way through to the wood. But on this case, it looks like it is just on the surface of the existing finish. So this is step one, getting your materials ready. I always try to get everything that I need within reach, because once you start this process, you don't want to have to stop and go find something. The weather, it usually needs to be about 50 degrees for the chemical stripper to work, which fortunately we have that today. And if you notice, I've brought the piece into my garage, because what you don't want is to get the stripper to dry out. It's a windy day today, and there's some sun, and so those two factors will work against me in trying to get this stripped. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, you really should be pouring this into a metal container and brushing it on. But a lot of times I do a little shortcut, and I just try to pour a little bit on and wipe it out. And you should go within the grain of the wood. And you want to put it on fairly heavy. I like a nice thick layer. It helps keep it wet, and it works better. And I'm trying to get the edges here, but not drip down onto the rest of the piece of furniture. And this is just personal preference, but when I do these pieces, I like to paint this top I don't know what it's called, mantelpiece maybe. And ideally, I would take this off before I started stripping, but in this case, it's been nailed on. Most of them that I've worked on have screws, and so I just unscrew it, take it off, strip the piece, and then screw it back on. And sometimes I just start straight away sanding, because you can sand off the old finish, you know, if you start with an 80 grit sandpaper and then work your way down, but it chews through a lot of sandpaper, and sandpaper is expensive. You can only get a little out of each 60 grit, and I just feel like I'm wasting it. So I'll still sand this when I'm done, but at least I've gotten that top surface off, or softened. So now this stripper, it says about 5 to 15 minutes, and I find that it works very quickly. So I think I have enough on. I can see it's already lifting. It's getting a little dry right here, so I'm going to put a little bit more on. So I'll just set my brush aside. I always like to have some spare brown paper around, or newspaper, so I can put my supplies on there. So on these edges, they look like they're taking pretty quickly, and I'm going to just use steel wool versus my scraper, because it's going to be hard to scrape these edges. Oh, it's coming up great. And this is already drying in some places. So I've got to work a little quickly here. Right down here it's drying. I'm going to take my scraper and scrape right into this paper plate. And in the past, I've thought, oh, this plastic scraper is not getting what I need up, and I've used a metal scraper, and I've gouged my wood. So I think it's a safer bet to stick with plastic. So I'm going to work right here on this piece where, this place where it has some dark stain, because if I can't get this lifted, if this is all the way through the wood, then it's not worth my trying to strip this whole thing. My hope was it was just on the surface and not stained all the way through, but it is appearing like it goes all the way through. If it wasn't so dark, I might consider leaving it, but this looks like it's going to be problematic because I'm down to the wood and it is definitely still very visible. I'm just going to go over with my steel wall and get up what I can. And trying to get in here, that groove where I couldn't take this piece off. Boy, this is such pretty wood. And now I'm going to apply this after wash. It just kind of takes all the residue off. Getting a fresh piece of steel wool. And this is just taking off any places that I couldn't really get the first time around with the scraper or the steel wool. Kind of cleans it up before sanding so you don't gunk up your sandpaper. I want to make sure that I get any residue off of this top piece because I am going to paint that. I'm gonna sand this. And I am gonna see if any of this can come off any further. Or at least lighten up a bit, so that if I use a very dark stain, it'll blend. The thing is, if you use a dark stain, this will also get darker. So that won't solve your problem, but it may blend a little bit better. So that's it for step one. I will come back and show you when I sand.